Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our first story today begins on a quiet two-lane road. One woman decided traffic laws didn't apply to her, tailgating a work van like she was in a NASCAR race, until she met a police officer with perfect timing. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The tailgater who got served by karma. I was driving home from work today, tired, hungry, and just wanting to get off the road when I ended up behind a woman in an SUV tailgating a work van. The van had the company name plastered all over it, one of those big boxy ones you can't mistake for anything else. The road we were on is a simple two-lane setup, one lane each direction, no passing zones, no turn lanes, nothing fancy. Just a straightforward road where you follow the car in front of you like a normal human being. Well, apparently Karen in the SUV wasn't familiar with the concept of normal. She was swerving from one side of our lane to the other like she was trying to see around the van, even though there was absolutely nowhere for anyone to go. She was laying on her horn repeatedly, shouting out her open window, flailing her hands in the air, and flipping off the poor guy in front of her like he had personally wronged her by obeying traffic laws. The man was literally going the posted speed limit, nothing more, nothing less. I stayed a few car lengths back because honestly, watching her meltdown was a little like observing a nature documentary. Fascinating, chaotic, and best viewed from a safe distance. Eventually, we reached the school zone, flashing lights on, speed limit drops. You'd think this would be the moment she took a deep breath and maybe calmed down. Nope, Karen floored it. She whipped into the opposite direction lane, the wrong side of the road, to pass the work van, in a school zone with kids around during active flashing light hours. I guess in her absolute frenzy to get in front of someone driving responsibly, she didn't notice the very large, very visible police cruiser parked on the side of the road. I, however, noticed. The instant she crossed that double yellow line, the police car lit up like a Christmas tree. Lights on, car roaring to life, pulling out behind us. Karen either didn't see him or thought the lights were for someone else because she kept driving like nothing happened, still yelling at the work van even though she was now ahead of it. Then the moment of realization hit her hard. She looked in her mirror, saw the cop behind her, and immediately lost her mind in a whole new way. Even from my car 2 vehicles back, I could see her gesturing wildly, probably trying to argue with reality itself. Eventually, she slowed down, pulled over, and the officer walked up to her window with that slow, deliberate cop walk reserved for people who have really messed up. As I passed, the work van went by first, and then I rolled past Karen mid-meltdown. She was still shouting, still flailing, still absolutely stunned that actions apparently have consequences. I gave her a cheerful little wave as I went by, not rude, not gloating, just a friendly, have a nice day gesture. I don't know exactly what she got ticketed for. Could have been reckless driving, passing in a no-passing zone, speeding in a school zone, endangering children, or honestly, all of the above. But whatever it was, she earned it. And I gotta say, watching Karma clock in for her shift right on time, beautiful. If you've ever wondered what unhinged entitlement looks like in motion, this was a masterclass. The only thing that would have been better is if you stopped to tell the officer how long she'd been driving erratically and gave him some details. You could have helped Karen get a bigger dose of meds. And our second story. The petty revenge that could never be reported. Many years ago, I worked at an ad agency, one of those chaotic, half-creative, half-toxic environments where everyone pretends to be far busier and more important than they actually are. In my department, we were the ones who actually had to get things done. But one of the account managers, let's call her Claire the Clown, had a massive chip on her shoulder about us. No idea why. Maybe we breathed wrong. Maybe someone once refused to fetch her a latte. Who knows? This was back in the days before hot desking and digital tracking, when people still had actual desks with actual drawers, and Claire decided she was going to wage some kind of petty Cold War against us. Her tactic? She'd pretend to work late, and by work late, I mean she'd walk around the office in her heels, clicking about like a disappointed schoolteacher, wait until everyone left, and then snoop. She would go through drawers, open files, look through papers, all in some desperate attempt to find something she could run squealing to the boss about. She wanted to catch us doing something wrong so badly that she'd stay in the office longer than we did, rifling through our desks like a raccoon with a vendetta. The thing is, we knew. We had her number from day one, and since I had already decided I was leaving the job and the country in a couple of months, I had no reason left to play nice. I was just sticking around to collect my last paychecks and enjoy the countdown. So I started leaving her little love notes. Not on the surface, not where a normal person would see them. No, I tucked them deep inside the drawers, in places you would only find if you were doing exactly what she was doing. Notes like, "F off, you snooping snitch. We know what you're doing. Nothing to see here. We all just hate you. Hope you enjoyed snooping enough to find this." Every few days, I'd add another one. Sometimes I'd get creative. Sometimes I'd get downright poetic. Once I wrote, "Dear Claire, this drawer is private. You are not. Kindly exit my life." We never confronted her. We never mentioned it. We never reacted to anything she did. The only way she'd know we knew was if she found the notes, and the only way she'd find the notes was by doing exactly the thing she knew she wasn't supposed to be doing. And oh, she found them. We knew she had. Her behavior shifted just enough, not dramatically. She wasn't about to come clean, but she got jittery around us. Suddenly, she avoided eye contact. Suddenly, she was quieter. Suddenly, she wasn't strutting around quite so confidently. And best of all, she never brought anything to the boss, because she couldn't. The only way she could complain about the notes was to admit she'd been snooping through other people's desks like a petty little office goblin. So she just had to sit there, stewing, reading our insults in silence, and pretending everything was normal. I left the company and the country almost 30 years ago. Haven't looked back once, not a single regret. But I do smile sometimes, imagining Claire opening a drawer, all hopeful she'd find some scandalous paperwork, only to find yet another note reminding her she was the office snitch, and we all knew it. Claire wasn't an account manager. She was a walking HR violation wrapped in heels. The woman treated the office like a crime scene she was desperate to solve, except there was no crime, and she was the only one acting suspicious. And our next story. I was pulled from my register to shop for an entitled customer. She learned a $600 lesson. Over 20 years ago, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store. The place was enormous and sold a wide variety of food, from standard groceries to expensive delicacies. One busy Saturday morning, when we had lots of customers and the lines were long, I was called away from my lane to the front desk. The manager on duty was speaking with a well-dressed woman. I was told that she wanted someone to get her groceries for her and bring them to the front desk for checkout. In the before times, this was a very unusual request. Our store did not offer personal shopping. I hadn't even heard of it before. I respectfully tried to communicate that by leaving my lane. We would be inconveniencing the other customers because checkout lines would just get longer. I was told to just get it done and handed the woman shopping list. First, it had already been a long morning for me and my feet were killing me, so I took my time. Second, the list didn't specify how many or what brand when it came to groceries. It just said basic things like apples, meat, tomato sauce, etc. So I delighted in selecting the very finest foods, and lots of them. Pounds and pounds of expensive specialty organic apples, meat, prime rib, and filet mignon. Tomato sauce? I distinctly remember selecting 8 jars of an imported sauce that cost $16 each. I wheeled the cart back to the front desk almost an hour later, where the woman was still waiting. The manager rang everything up, and it came to over $600. The woman balked and tried to argue, but somehow the manager had grown a spine in the hour I was away, because he told her we'd already honored her request. She could either choose to pay the bill or do her own shopping. She decided to pay the bill, although she was clearly unhappy. I went back to my lane, and I never heard another word about it. The manager's spine development is the perfect twist. After initially caving to the customer's entitlement, he was left holding the bag, a $600 bag of the store's most expensive inventory that he had explicitly ordered you to procure. His only logical move was to back your play completely. And our next story. A perfect "I don't work here, lady" moment, almost ruined by my honesty. Today, a friend/colleague and I decided to meet for brunch at a cafe in order to go over the content we'll be covering in the new school year, which will be starting in a little over a week. I arrived first and sat outside waiting for her. Summer here. A few minutes later, she turns up. Note, she's wearing a black shirt and black shorts. She dumps her bags containing textbooks and laptop on the table. We quickly greet each other. She asks if I want a coffee. I say yes and ask if she can also grab water. We've also bought each other coffees numerous times, so I don't think I needed to clarify what I wanted. My mistake. She heads into the cafe to order. As she's leaving the table, an older lady walks into the outdoor area and sits at the table next to us. Less than a minute after walking inside the cafe, my friend sticks her head out the door and confirms my order. Naturally, she had it right, but it was nice of her to check. Her head pops back into the cafe. It seems the older lady sitting at the table next door took note of this exchange and made an assumption. A minute later, my friend exits the cafe with a large bottle of water in one hand and 2 small tumblers in the other. This, combined with the previous order check, obviously cemented this lady's previous assumption. The lady perks up and asks my friend if she could also get her water and take her order. My friend laughs kindly and says, "I don't work here, but with what I'm wearing, I understand why you think I do." As a regular lurker on this sub, I watch on with gleeful anticipation. Sadly, I was let down. The older lady also laughs, and as my friend places the water and glasses on our table, the lady apologizes. I turn to the lady and with a big, cheeky, jerkhead grin observed, she does actually work here. I don't know why she's saying she doesn't. There's a pause. My friend looks at me. The lady looks at me. I know I'm grinning like an effing idiot. My friend exclaims and laughs, "Oh, OP, why do you always have to make things so difficult?" while gently swatting me on the shoulder. The lady, who's standing by this point, obviously catches on that I'm being a jerkwit and says her husband's exactly the same, while also gently swatting me on my shoulder. We all have a laugh and move on with our day. The way OP watched a wholesome moment happen and said, "No, absolutely not. Let chaos reign," because everything was fine. A normal misunderstanding. People being decent, no drama. But OP has the kind of brain that sees an unlocked door labeled "Do Not Enter" and immediately turns the handle. And our last story. Karen said she would park wherever she wanted. Back in 2015, I moved into my new house and immediately threw myself into renovating and landscaping. The place needed work, but it had potential. One thing the previous owner never used was the driveway. It stopped at the property line and didn't extend to the road, but the concrete pad was already there. All I needed was a proper extension. So I did everything by the book. Plans submitted, permits approved, council signed off. When the contractors finished, I finally had a full driveway that reached the curb. Enter my neighbor, Karen. Karen had been parking on the street in front of my house long before I moved in. Fine, whatever, public street. But now she was parking across the entry of my brand new driveway like it was her birthright. I even told her beforehand that I'd be extending it. She watched the construction. She saw the concrete. She saw the fresh cutout in the curb. She knew exactly what it was. Yet the first time I tried to use it, she parked 6 feet over the entrance like she was actively daring me to say something. I squeezed in, barely, then walked straight to her house, very polite, very neighborly. "Hey, you might have forgotten, but the driveway's active now. Can you move up a bit?" She didn't even pretend to misunderstand. Her first words were, "I've always parked there." I blinked. "Yeah, but now it's a driveway. I can't use it if you block it." She doubled down. "I'm not moving. I've always parked in that spot. You should have put your driveway on the other side." I asked if she was serious. She said she absolutely was, so I told her calmly that if she refused to move, I'd have to call the police. She smirked and said, "Go ahead. I know the sergeant. He'll say I can park there." Challenge accepted. I called the police. They showed up. They took one look at the situation and told her to move her car immediately. She tried the same "I've always parked there" excuse, but the officers weren't having it. They warned her that if she blocked my driveway again, she'd be fined. She moved, fuming. A few weeks passed and she began parking with the nose of her car about 2 inches literally from the driveway opening. Not illegal, but very intentional. She had miles of curb in front of her own home, yet she hovered as close as physically possible to mine. Annoying, but technically legal. I let it go. Then the real madness began. She started calling the police on me for anything and everything. My lawnmower being too loud, the smell of paint when I painted my house, debris in my own skip bin, even claiming my garden hose was flooding the neighborhood. She watched my property like a hawk with nothing better to do. For the first few calls, police politely checked things out. After that, they stopped responding unless it was something serious. They knew exactly what she was, a bitter neighborhood tyrant with too much free time. One day, my elderly father came to visit. I told him to park across my driveway, perfectly legal because it's my driveway. Karen stormed out of her lair, screaming at him for blocking access. My dad, who has the patience of a saint until he doesn't, gave her a few choice words that sent her scurrying back inside like a slapped ferret. That should have been the end. It wasn't. A few months later, something happened that finally tipped the scales. Karen got into a shouting match with yet another neighbor, someone even more sick of her crap than I was. She threatened him. He threatened to call the police, and Karen, in true Karen fashion, screamed, "Do it! I know everyone down there." She didn't expect him to have over a year's worth of recorded harassment, including footage of her trespassing, screaming at visitors, and blocking access to multiple properties. He handed everything to the police and the council. And that was the beginning of the end. Between her false reports, the documented harassment, multiple witnesses, and her pattern of obstructing access to several driveways, not just mine, the council finally stepped in. She was fined repeatedly, a restraining order was issued preventing her from approaching or confronting neighbors, and the cherry on top, parking enforcement began ticketing her every single time she so much as sniffed near someone else's driveway. She racked up so many fines and her mortgage was already behind that within a year she had no choice but to sell her house. And just like that, Karen was gone. I like the part where she threatened the wrong neighbor, the one with a year of recordings. That man dropped a dossier thicker than a true crime documentary. The council probably read it with popcorn. Karen didn't just lose the war, she lost the house. Bravo, guys. Perfect execution. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.